This new initiative called America's Harvest Boxes, have you heard of it? Was introduced by the federal government as part of a pilot program with a $30 million price tag. The idea is it would replace about half the cash assistance given to families under SNAP, food stamps, with a prepackaged box of food essentials. Right now, SNAP benefits allow families to buy what they, think works best for them. Groceries, meat, fresh produce, you name it, at their local stores. But with harvest boxes, that choice gets cut short. Instead, we're talking packaged foods, stuff like peanut butter, pasta, canned meats, milk that doesn't need refrigeration. Basically, only shelf-stable options. What does this mean for families? Well, it seems there's less freedom to decide what goes on their dinner tables. Think about all the dietary preferences, food allergies, or even religious restrictions that folks might have to navigate. How do you create one-size-fits-all meals for millions of people without stepping on, dietary toes? To complicate things further, there's the issue of nutrition. Critics are raising valid concerns here. Harvest boxes don't exactly scream health conscious. They're filled with processed items, chemicals, and in some even prescription drugs, as minimal as they are, replacing fresh fruits, veggies, and lean proteins. Is it, helping low-income families eat better? Or is it just about saving a buck? And as someone who has spent years in the legal system, I've seen how changes to social benefits can, and often do, throw lives into chaos. It's tough rebuilding from scratch when systems impose changes top-down. So looking at harvest boxes, the questions becomes, where's the balance between government policy and personal autonomy here? Let's start with the processed food issue, because there's a lot to unpack here. Harvest boxes rely heavily on, these pre-made, shelf-stable items. Foods like canned meat, boxed pasta, and powdered milk. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with processed food. We all eat it. But the big concern is the chemical additives and preservatives that come with the territory. You've got sodium levels through the roof, artificial flavors, and things like high fructose corn syrup. These are not ingredients you'd celebrate if you're aiming for long-term health. And it's not just about health risks. It's also about trust. How much do families trust what's in their food when the government, not them, is making the choices? That ties directly into freedom of choice. With SNAP, people have the flexibility to pick items that fit their lifestyles, their dietary restrictions, and even their cultural heritage. But with a box of pre-selected food, that's all out the window. And that loss of agency? It doesn't sit well. It's like telling people they don't know what's good for them. And here's the thing. This hits seniors especially hard. Many older adults depend on SNAP, and their dietary needs can be incredibly specific. Whether it's because of a medical condition like diabetes or something simpler, like dental issues that make chewing harder, one-size-fits-all food boxes just don't work. Imagine opening a harvest box and realizing that half the items, half of them might be useless to you. What do you do then? When you think about it, this top-down approach doesn't really empower people. Instead, it kind of limits their ability to manage their own well-being. And for groups like seniors, who may already feel overlooked, this could feel like, honestly, another hit to their independence. One of the recurring concerns about harvest boxes is what they mean for nutrition. We're talking about replacing fresh produce, lean meats, and other healthy options that you can get with SNAP, with, shelf-stable items like canned goods and packaged foods. And while these foods are convenient, they come at a cost. Nutritionally, that is. These boxes could unintentionally contribute to already alarming health trends in low-income communities, like rising obesity rates and chronic conditions such as diabetes or heart disease. And here's the thing. Replacing SNAP dollars with pre-packaged food doesn't just impact health, it completely disregards the unique dietary needs and preferences of millions of families. Think allergies, health conditions, or even cultural food traditions. One box can't possibly account for that level of diversity. Imagine someone with lactose intolerance getting powdered milk in their box, or someone relying on a meal plan for diabetes being handed processed, sugary items. It's not just inconvenient, it could be unsafe. Nutritional experts, dietitians, public health researchers, they've weighed in on this. Some of them point out how SNAP has allowed recipients to choose fresh fruits, vegetables, and proteins, things we know improve long-term health. Compare that to a mainly processed diet, and the research is clear. Limited access to fresh foods often leads to worse health outcomes over time. And that's not, hypothetical. It's happening. There are studies documenting the cascading effects when people are forced to rely more on processed options. The long-term fallout is not pretty. When you think about it, harvest boxes might save some money up front. Fewer SNAP dollars spent means a smaller budget. But at what cost? The health system ends up shouldering the burden later, treating preventable chronic diseases. It's a trade-off, but is it really a smart one? So let's step back for a moment and think about the bigger picture. This whole conversation about harvest boxes isn't just about food or budgets. It's about autonomy. The right to make choices that align with our needs, our values, and honestly, our dignity. When the government starts dictating what 16 million families put on their tables, it raises some pretty fundamental questions. How much control should we give up in exchange for support? And at what cost? This kind of top-down standardization isn't exactly new. Welfare reforms in the past have often sparked the same kind of debate. Who decides what's best for others? And while the intentions might be good, we've seen how these changes can fracture trust and leave communities scrambling to adapt. And let's not forget the economic side of this conversation. On paper, reducing SNAP benefits and shipping out standardized food boxes might look like a cost-cutting measure. But is it efficient? Does it reduce poverty or feed people better? Or is it just a way to trim the budget in the short term? The truth is, when policies neglect to address the unique needs of individuals, they often fail to deliver on their goals. I actually had a client a few years ago who really drove this idea home for me. She was struggling to navigate changes to her housing assistance, and I remember her saying, "No one asked me what I actually needed. They just assumed." That stuck with me, and isn't that what we're seeing here too? Policies crafted from a distance without truly understanding the lives they're meant to impact. So maybe this is where we, as a society, need to ask ourselves some tough questions. Are we okay with trading individuality, even basic freedoms, for efficiency? And do innovations like harvest boxes solve more problems than they create? It's a lot to think about, but it's exactly these kinds of decisions that shape the kind of society we want to build. And that's all for today. Thanks for spending time with me as we unpack this. These are tough topics, but they matter, On that note, I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.
Certified badass.